Like I've shown you before, part of the fun of the reassembly process is you kind of gotta, sometimes you gotta kind of throw a body panel on there, freshly painted panel, just because you can't, you can't go through the whole process and wait till the very end. You just gotta reward yourself in whatever way, shape, or form works for you, right? And this is what works for me, is throwing on freshly painted panels here and there, just to let myself know that I'm almost there. Almost there. And how much better is this going to look than that ghastly metallic blue that was on there before? There's just no comparison. I still don't understand why people go to the trouble of painting a bike and they pick the worst possible color. I mean, I understand, don't get me wrong, that doing, three different colors, and if you've got to pay somebody else to do it professionally, it does cost a significant amount of money. There's no doubt about it. So I guess it all comes down to cost a lot of the time, but holy cow, it just looks so much better in those green, white, and blue colors. Okay, so what have I done while you're away on this bike? So I mounted the thermostat housing and the hoses. None of these are attached to anything yet because the rads and everything are not on. But the headlights are back on and connected up. Obviously the clocks are on, and yeah, I've just kind of picked away at some of the small stuff. And the next thing is this thing has to come off the ramp, because I got to get the other bike on there to get the exhaust off. So the next couple of things will be to hook up the oil cooler, because to get to the oil cooler lines, the cooler will kind of sit on the ground here. The lines have to get routed in and bolted up. Then the headers have to go on. Then the oil cooler can be bolted back up and the radiator can go back on. So I don't really want to do any more to this bike until I get the headers off that bike, and then this thing can come back on the ramp again. Time to build myself a new gas cap. This was the gas cap that was on the blue bike, and I don't know if you remember, it was all seized solid, and I ended up drilling out the lock to get it open. But the actual assembly on the bottom here is completely seized, and yeah, it's not worth anything. So then I bought a new gas cap assembly from eBay, but the bezel that comes with it is plastic, and it looks like crap. Chromey typey, plasticky typey thingy, complete piece of shit. So what I've decided to do is to take the cap portion of it, which I'm hoping is going to be okay. And let me just kind of show you here. This is the old bezel. This is the new cap, which I've removed, and it seems to be all right. Seems to be made of metal, so that's a good start. And there's a key and whatnot with that. So all I'm going to do is put the screws back in there. These are the ones that came out of the cheapy guy. I'm going to put those back in just in case the depth of this is any different. I don't know what it would be. Maybe I'll put the originals back in, just with a spot of Loctite on there, and I'll put probably put the new gasket in the bottom, because it actually is more pliable and supple, so it'll probably work better. But then I can I just feel better. It'll look better. It's just much more original. I can't, in all good conscience, put that ugly thing on that bike. So I've got the 89 pipes here, and they're kind of, I believe they're stainless steel, but they're quite aged, and the finish has kind of gone really dark. I did try some blue remover, which often works well, but it didn't really do anything. So I've got some 3M Scotch-Brite type of pad with WD-40, so I'm just kind of going over it. It's starting to bring the tarnishing off Trying to get these things cleaned up to the point where they look presentable. I really don't want to paint them. I think paint, you can, in my opinion, paint is only kind of good for it's kind of the mild steel headers. I don't like painting stainless steel pipes and whatnot. I'd rather put the elbow grease in and try to get the finish to come back to something that looks semi-decent. I mean, if I can get more of that sort of finish to come back here, that would be great. So I've got a long way to go. It's times like this where I kind of realize and I wonder why I'm actually not using this lift table. The bike sits on here and it doesn't get used very much. I end up laying on my back and crouching down, and it would probably be so much easier to lift this thing up. But unfortunately I have these side extensions on here and the table is actually too wide to get at the bike properly, and that's partly because I end up using another jack stand on here to allow me to support the engine, and it's such a pain in the neck to take these things on and off. Alright, so there's the correct headers are in there now. I got those cleaned up as best I could. They came out not too bad. I think the only thing I find with installing headers, I mean, as much as I look and I try to get the right feel for them seating, I'm always concerned that they're not quite seated right, but I think these are okay. They just don't always seem to want to go in very easily. These ones didn't go in too bad, but I still wonder. I won't really know, I guess, until I fire it up and make sure I don't hear the kind of spitting, ticking noise that it makes if you've got an exhaust leak. All right, let's spin on a new oil filter here. I'm not surprised they moved it. It's in quite a vulnerable position right there, I would say. Okay, just a quick view of what's going on here. As you saw, the headers are on. I just put the pipe on. Maybe temporary. I have to bleed the brakes and all that kind of stuff yet, but I should be able to actually get at it without too much trouble with that there. Get your finger out of the way. So what else have I got going on? Well, the radiator's hooked up. Oil cooler obviously is hooked up. I've got the these brackets mounted back on. So yeah, it's coming along. Can't rush into these things, slowly but surely. It seemed to work okay, not too bad. We'll see if it holds its shape over time or not. Okay, I've got the booster pack hooked up here, and just checking that everything cranks over and that I've got spark now that it's all back together. It is important, even if you're not checking for spark, that you've got your plugs in your boots when you're cranking. You don't want to have just the boots with no plugs in them, because some ignition systems, some CDI ignition systems are very, very sensitive to being cranked over with no spark plugs, and you can damage your ignition system. So always make sure you've got the plug in the boot. I did get my oil light to go out, so that's what I wanted. I've mounted the better of the rear tank brackets on here. The other one had a broken off bolt in it, and so just want to use to mount while I was painting it. So that's been removed. The better one is on here. The front mount I've just painted, so once that dries, I'll put the grommets and everything back in there, and those collar washers in, and then that can get mounted up as well. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm just starting to test out the fuel lines that I'm putting on. These are slightly long. When you take a look on the bike, they should probably come to about where my thumb is, but that's fine. They can get cut off later. I just want to make sure these will route discreetly. The ones that were on before, the way they were routed, they were kind of hanging down. You could see them everywhere. So I'm going to try these ones. Again, this is another one that I'm kind of pre-bending here with the coat hanger inside it, heating it up, just to try to make sure that I can get away with kind of bending it like that inside without it kinking too badly. We'll see how that works. Otherwise, I may have to go to a different kind of fuel line on it. We'll see how that works. No big deal. The other thing I am still waiting for is I bought a new fuel pump. Only this one works, but there was crap inside of there. Even though it was pumping clear fuel out when I tested it, I can see crap inside of it. So it just isn't really worth the risk of pumping junk into the carburetors and dealing with that. So I've ordered a new fuel pump. I'll see when that arrives. That'll take a while. Still waiting on the rebuild kit for this. I just mounted it temporarily just so I can get everything mocked up and the fuel lines to the right length and all that kind of thing. As you saw, the carburetors have been installed. The choke cable works. The throttle cables are all working and snapping back nicely. Plugs are not yet installed, but they will go in soon. Cranked everything over. It cranks. That's good news. It's always a bit of a worry, for me anyway, when you've had everything apart, and even though it's been labeled and put back together what you believe is the right way, it is a relief when the thing actually cranks over and you've got spark again and all that kind of good stuff. So fresh oil in there. That's been pumped around, and pretty soon I'll be able to see if this thing will pop over again. And then once that's happened, things like carburetor syncing still need to be done. Like this is the throttle adjuster, the idle adjusting screw, which has to be mounted up in here. That's not been done yet. A lot of little things still to do. This is one of the original Kawasaki grips, and I've got new grips to go on. They're not identical to this, but nonetheless, I'm putting new grips on everywhere. And all the brakes still need to be bled, and the front brake lines are not on yet, and the front lever and master cylinder are not on yet. So yeah, lots of little things to be done. What else is happening? This has got to be put on. These have to be wired up. I still haven't put any kind of connectors on the rear tail lights yet. And yeah, just a bunch of little things. The rest of the decals still need to be put on. So I'm just kind of doing a little bit each day on this. I've got some other things going on at the moment. So if I really pushed hard, I could probably do the whole thing in a day and get it all finished up. But there really is no urgent rush on it. So I'll just take my time. I just spliced in some longer wires here for the turn signals, added some connectors. They were all missing. These ones were basically cut right off here, so I just kind of extended them. So the brake lever is mounted. I've got a bit of shop towel stuffed in there for the moment, just because I haven't got this tightened down completely yet, because I'm guessing I'm going to need to bleed the master cylinder first. And then I'll make sure that I'll loosen this off again a little bit. These are not cranked down too tight, they're just kind of snugged up. And I'll reverse bleed the caliper, and then we'll go from there. Same with this one, I'll reverse bleed that. Clutch, all those fittings are back on, new banjo bolt washers and whatnot. I find the clutch and the rear brake are usually pretty simple to bleed. The front brakes, for me at least, not quite as easy. However, you know, we usually get there in the end. It's just a bit of a pain in the neck. I usually start by bleeding the master, get the air out of the master cylinder, and then I'll go to the furthest, the left side caliper, bleed that off. Try to back feed the fluid up to the top here, and then it just takes a little less time trying to get all of the air out of the caliper itself. I've never had a lot of luck pushing, like reverse bleeding from the caliper right through to the master cylinder for some reason. It just never seems to work well for me. Probably because I'm not doing it right. But that aside, we'll get to that shortly. Coolant is in, the new grips are on. I still have to do a little bit of adjustment here. This is, I mean, there's lots of, it snaps back quite okay, but this is kind of a little bit too much free play here, I think. That's why I've got to get that adjusted. And tail lights are hooked up. That's done. And yeah, it's not a ton of stuff left. I think before too long, we'll throw the plugs back in and see if we can get her to fire up. And then after that, after she's been running, I will throw the bodywork on it and we'll get the rest of the decals on. Well, as predicted, the same game, same nonsense as usual with the front brakes. I've been at this for a good hour on the front brakes, and I've got very little to show for my work here. Back brake bled, no problem, real quick, real easy. The clutch slave, that bled real easy, no problem. Front brakes, different story, and the same story as usual. So I've used a vacuum, Mighty Vac to keep pulling the fluid. I've used the conventional kind of pump and release the bleed nipple, like, you know, pump it up, hold the lever, the same as I would have done for the rear and for the, you know, the clutch slave. But this, the whole front brake bleeding process is the bane of my existence. There's a few things when I do this that never seem to go well for me. Front brake bleeding is one of those things. I never look forward to it. I always put it off, and this is why. It's because I've yet to figure out the secret sauce. Okay, I'm still getting nowhere. Spent another half an hour. So what have I done so far to try to troubleshoot why I'm not getting any lever feel, no pressure at the caliper per se? So I took these off, both of them, and if I put my finger over the end of the master cylinder and I pull that lever, it's rock hard, absolutely rock hard. So I know I'm building pressure there. That's kind of, that's good, we know that. I did a vac bleed, reverse bleed from this. I've used a syringe. Where's my syringe? It's up there. I bled it back from here up to the top until I saw fluid coming out of there on both sides. I've also disconnected this again and squeezed the lever, and I get tons of fluid coming out of there. Of course, I'm trying to be very careful that I don't get brake fluid on my fresh paint or anything. But yeah, so both sides I'm getting lots of fluid coming out of the banjo fitting. So yeah, that's, I don't know. I'm just, I'm a little bit lost on why that is. I got basically nothing to speak of, nothing material happening there. Here it is without vacuum. So I'm holding the lever with my elbow here to get you this shot here. couple little bubbles, I guess. A couple more pumps here. See, there's very little fluid movement. All right, so the brakes are back off. I took everything off the bike and I still left everything connected. I just took it off in one unit off the bike. And as I bleed this thing here on the bench, I'm getting no bubbles. See, there's a column of fluid right there, and there's no bubbles coming out of it. And the same with this one, and I still have no real material feel to this lever. I'm trying to get you a shot here. It's a little difficult to do this with one hand on the bench, holding it. But I'm pumping the lever, holding the lever now, and then if you can see that column of fluid is nicely rising there up in the tube. Pumping again. Let me just get you a better shot here of that. All right, so I'm hesitant to say I've had a small breakthrough here. On this caliper, I just got a whole mess of really large bubbles to come out. I basically kind of manipulated the caliper and tapped it, and so we'll see what we get. I'm going to put this back on the stand here and see if it's possible to see what I got going on here. Let's see if I get any more out. But it was significant, the amount of air. See, those two bubbles came out there? I've been getting quite a few like that. A little tricky to do this with one hand with the calipers on the bench, but the lever actually starting to feel like it's got some resistance to it, which is good. I just got to be careful as I'm doing this because I've taken all the pads out so I could have a good view of everything. I just don't want to be popping pads out and all that kind of nonsense after I get this far. See, more bubbles. I'm not sure how these things end up get trapped here and there, I guess, and that's one of the reasons I figured I would take these off the bench. One is I'm not going to spill brake fluid all over my freshly painted wheels as I monkey around with this, but I figured if I can manipulate the calipers, if there's any air trapped anywhere, then that might help me out a little bit. So I'm going to keep on doing this and just see how far I can get. Okay, so what I've done is I put the pads back in, and I've got some cedar shimming, which is kind of handy for keeping the calipers separated, and it'll allow the calipers to kind of clamp down on here and make sure the pistons don't push too far out while I continue the process of bleeding here. Success. So yeah, I guess it was just there was air in there that just was trapped, and by taking the calipers off the bike, kind of moving them around a little bit in the process, it seemed to help quite a bit. Okay, so I got a good lever now, brake pressure, and yeah, the big thing was just getting them on the bench and basically moving the position of the calipers to get some of the other air bubbles out. But what I am going to do, just to be safe, is similar to what I've done down by this wheel. Because I took those calipers right apart, they were in pretty rough shape. I'm going to put some towels on the wheel there and some shop rags, just to make sure that I don't have anything dripping, and if it does drip, that it drips on the towels and I don't get it on my paint. Well, today I was all supposed to see if the bike would fire up, but my entire day got consumed playing with brakes. So that'll be the task for tomorrow, I guess, instead. That's fine. As always, tomorrow. So yeah, we'll get that sorted out. And I think what I'll do tomorrow is, before I get all excited and attach a fuel bottle, I'm just going to give it a quick shot of fuel down each of the carbs just to make sure she fires. I have no reason to think it won't. And then I'll hook up a fuel bottle and see how it goes. All right, we'll see if she'll spark to life here. Okay, so we've got a fuel bottle set up. I had to lift the table up so my fuel bottle would reach, because it's a little bit short on the wire at the top hanging from the ceiling. But anyway, nonetheless, so I'm expecting that I'm going to have to adjust the idle down a little bit on it once it gets going. But we'll see how it fares. Smoky with all of the WD-40 burning off everywhere, but not too bad. That probably would have been better done at the back of the shop. The door's open, but it's minus 30 degrees Celsius outside today, and yeah, that's not happening. But I'm probably gonna end up having to open the windows anyway. Jeez. All right, so that went reasonably well. Startup was kind of non-eventful, which was good. I got it to idle down a little bit. It's going to need, obviously, the carburetors need to be synced. They have not been synced yet. I'm going to have to wait for a much warmer day because I have to go to the back doors of the shop and do that because to get it running and get it warmed up long enough and whatnot. Can't do that on a day like today. It is absolutely freezing outside. It's I can't really see very well through the screen here, but it's, yeah, minus 30 degrees Celsius, and it is friggin' freezing out there. All right, so basically all of the smoke that you were seeing when the bike was running, which was kind of all kind of coming up and around here, was basically a combination of penetrating oils, because on this engine, obviously I soaked the living daylights out of all of the studs in the cylinder head and whatnot when I took the exhaust off it a while back. These pipes off the 90, which they are 89 pipes, these were cleaned using WD-40 and Scotch-Brite pad and whatnot. There's a bunch of fresh paint on the radiators. There's all kinds of cleaning products used on the engine. Fresh paint on some of the side covers, etc., etc. So yeah, it's just basically all of that crap burning off. So it just takes a couple of heat cycles to get all of that stuff burnt off, and so then you don't see that smoke anymore. But by and large, for first run startup, I'll take that. Okay, Hoover tubes are back on. Upper fairing is on. Basically just the lower fairings and that little V stiffener to go on. And then we can get the decals on after that. Of course, I've got my grubby fingerprints all over everything. That all has to get cleaned off. But yeah, she's looking pretty good. All right, the bodywork is on. That was a little bit of a wrestling match, but we got there in the end. So really now it's just kind of the final decals that have to go on. There's a Kawasaki decal that has to go on the nose. There's the Japanese letters for Ninja that kind of go down here, have to be put on. There's the ZX7 goes on the side tail here. Ninja going on the top. And yeah, and then we're just about there. I think the one thing that I will have to go back and do, of course, is sync the carbs and whatnot, but it's just so darn cold here right now. There's just no way I can do that at the moment. I've got to run this thing for a fair while, get it fully warmed up and play with it while it's running, and it's just ridiculously cold. So I'm gonna have to wait for warmer weather for that particular part of it, but that's fine. There's no mad rush for that bit. But Decal time. So first job is cleaning all the panels with isopropyl alcohol. That's been done. Then I basically trimmed off all of the decals, so I don't have any extraneous bits of the backing or the release tape. Just kind of cut around the edges as close as makes sense to do so. And yeah, let's get started. Again, when you're squeeging out the water, you work your way from wherever you've got your hinge up, in this case up and out. If I hinged it at the top, then you'd move down and out, kind of like in an arc shape, this way, this way. That way you've got your best chance of getting all of the water out and very few air bubbles, if any. right, so there she is, right next to the 1990. Well, they make a good looking pair. Not too bad. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this series on the 89 ZX7. Appreciate everybody's time taken to tune into the channel and watch the videos. I know how valuable your time is, and I appreciate you spending some of that watching my stuff. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we'll see you in the next one.